It's the FIA Formula 2 Austrian Grand Prix, and it's time for the 45-minute free practice session to get underway here in the Styrian Mountains at Spielberg, Austria's Red Bull Ring. Hello everybody, welcome as the green light is on and practice is underway here at the Red Bull Ring. Fingers crossed it's going to be a fascinating session. That's what we need it to be. Let's head over to the world feed as well. 15 minutes of acclimatisation before the real action begins.
Chris McCarthy, alongside me, Alex Brunt.
Great to be here in the picturesque Styrian Mountains for some Formula 2 racing. As you say, Chris, it's been a great run of form from Paul Aaron. 7 consecutive point-scoring finishes now for Aaron have left him at the top of the championship standings on around 100 points. Isaac Hadjar, the man we're on board with now, trails him with 91 points as we, as you say, approach that turning point, that midpoint of the season as they start to move away from the start and towards the end of the year. Drivers becoming ever more adept at handling this new Formula 2 car and nailing the race format that we have in F2.
It's going to be soft and super soft tyres in action this weekend. Behind the top two in the championship, Zane Maloney in third on 75 points. Has dropped back slightly in the standing so far. He had a 20th after a penalty and a 7th place for him, but still sits third. 4th place for Jack Crofton after that feature race win. Dennis Hauger, 5th place, then Franco Colapinto, Gabriel Bortoleto, Kushmini after his podium, Andrea Kimi Antonelli and Zach O'Sullivan. Well, we can see Zane Maloney on our screen. 3rd place for him so far, 25 points back. It's been a decent season for him. He has just had a slight dip in form so far, but the Road and Motorsport driver will be hoping to pick that back up around here at the Red Bull Ring now. We can see him coming bound turn 4 now, round turn 5. He's just 25 points back in the championship from Paul Aaron. He is certainly a contender in this championship, and we caught up with him about that yesterday.
Barcelona was challenging for me and for the team. Qualifying especially, we had a really bad qualifying, which then led to 2 difficult races, made up 10 places in the feature race, which was good, so a few points. Monaco was nothing from ourselves. We were on for pole or front row and got traffic in qualifying, so that's Monaco and you can't do much about that. And then Imola, in the pit stop sequence, we lost 7 or 8 places, so we should have been on the podium there. So I mean, I wouldn't say that the pace has dropped off or anyone's caught up, let's say. I'd say that we're still in the mix, top 3 every weekend in terms of pace. We know what happened in Barcelona, which is a good thing, so moving on to Austria is just trying to really get the results and not just have the pace.
So Zane Maloney there, well, as he mentioned, Alex, hasn't quite had a dip in pace, more just a dip in fortunes and form.
Yeah, could well be. I mean, the first couple of races in Bahrain, of course, did the double, and then followed it up a bit later in the year with podium in Melbourne, podium in the sprint race in Imola. But then you look at those last 4 results, retired in the first race in Monaco, grabbed points in the second, 20th and 7th, the 2 efforts in Barcelona for the Sauber Academy driver. And he needs to try and grab a result here to get the series back on track for him after what was an incredible start, using all of that experience, but then again outperforming other drivers with similar amounts of experience. I mean, riding on board with Victor Martins, did his weekend in Barcelona just characterise his season? Victor Martins, a brilliant win in the first race, romping away in the sprint race to take victory, and then of course out in the first corner in in the feature race. Exactly the kind of season that one of the highest performing returning drivers from last year has been having throughout this year. Incredible how some of those returning drivers have had such a difficult time at the beginning phase of this season.
Well, Victor Martins, we can see him, good to see him back on the top step, back on the podium as well. Qualified on pole position here last year, did Victor Martins, so he'll have confidence coming in to this weekend, and he got a podium here last year. Speaking of podiums, Juan Manuel Correa returning to the podium 5 years to the day he last stood on it alongside Antoine Hubert and Paul Ricard. What a special result for him, having been denied the previous day after a post-race penalty. Juan Manuel Correa with a spirited performance to come through. He said on the Friday after qualifying, I want that feature race podium. He went out on the alternative strategy and got it.
Yeah, had all the emotions twice, didn't we?
Yes.
For Correa throughout the weekend. Incredible drive initially, and then caught out by track limits, which I think was galling for him, and galling for everybody else. But then it was a superb drive eventually to snatch the podium in the feature race. He said before the weekend that is exactly what he wanted to do, that he wasn't much interested in the sprint race podium, that it was all about getting that podium, what he perceived to be on merit, after, of course, lining up where he qualified, using both compounds, doing the pit stop across the longer feature race, and that's exactly what he did. And it represented, I think, for all of us, incredible tenacity and an incredible return to the real form that we saw from him before that horrid incident he had for Correa. Good for him.
Yeah, Dams Lucas Oil, great weekend for them overall. 2 drivers on the podium in the feature race. They're 6th in the team's championship, just 28 points behind Campos Racing, who lead, showing you how close that battle is. Speaking of track limits, we'll come to, I'm sure many of you are waiting to see those gravel traps if you didn't quite see Formula 3 Turn 9 and 10. We've had those added in for those people who weren't with us in that Formula 3 practice session. New gravel traps added in. Alex, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we saw a lot of sweeping going on, didn't we, after Formula 3 practice earlier on through the mid-corner of Turn 9 and Turn 10. There are bands of gravel that sit in quite shallow trenches on the outside of Turn 9. You can just see it as Fittipaldi goes through onto the exit curb of Turn 9 and Turn 10. I think good stuff, because we've definitely seen drivers being forced to keep their wheels inside the white lines. We haven't seen a huge amount of track limits penalties that haven't come with time loss through the middle of Turn 9 and 10. That's the positive. The negative is how much gravel affects the racing line, but I think it's a relatively cheap price to pay to lose those horrid moments where we lose times to track limits 5, 10, 15 minutes after the session, after race control have finished going through all of the calls. So I think a positive change at this stage of the weekend. Let's see how the qualifyings and races pan out.
And white lines slightly moved to closer to gravel beds around the circuit in some areas as well, just for some of these support series as well, which we've also seen.
We did see Formula 3 cars getting picked up on the exit of Turn 6, where you can get a full Formula 3 car off the road and back on again. Formula 2 cars are a little bit wider. I don't think they'll be having that issue, but the idea there is to make sure that cars can't basically sit all 4 wheels on the curb and therefore get a track limits penalty as a result. Just trying to take away some of the frustration that we've seen over previous years here. I mean, there were a huge amount of drivers who lost positions after sessions throughout the race weekend last year, and if that can be avoided with natural barriers, then that's great. I think great progress towards that from the circuit here, and commitment for them, because so much of that track furniture as well may have to be moved when they have motorcycles racing here, as they so often do.
So Turn 1, Turn 4, Turn 6 is where we've seen that. We ride on board with Ollie Behrman. I mean, a frustrating weekend for him. Another frustrating weekend, I think we can say, for him and the Prima Racing team, yet to get on the podium this season. And we reach round 7. They are the only team to have done that. Ollie Behrman, as he comes up through Turn 1, And goes over the sausage curb and almost into the barriers, surfing through turn 1. There was Ollie Bearman.
It was a moment there, it was 45 degrees towards the outside barrier. That's how hard Bearman was pushing. But Prima, you know, so often considered the benchmark in these feeder series. Poker faces there.
There's Jamie Smith, who's been his mechanic since he was in karting, watching on.
Let's have a look at it from Ollie Bearman. He's just going to get onto this outside curve. He's going to pick the rear tyres up off the floor there, and 50-50 grind. Just short enough for Ollie Bearman to stick the landing there on the way out of turn 1. But Poker Faces on the pit wall. 7th in the championship, the team championship at the moment, Prey. For a team that we would consider so often to be the benchmark in this series, this new car has befuddled them, hasn't it? It really did at the start of the year, and then it has continued to do so around the edges since then. They've got 2 great drivers in the shape of Antonelli and Bearman, but they just can't seem to quite make it work in all conditions, can they?
No, it's been a puzzling season for them. Ollie Bearman in the feature race last week was told to come in. He didn't in the end. He continued to circle around, but just hasn't quite been able to put it together. We've seen him do well in qualifying sessions. We haven't really seen him go so well in races just yet. But let's see how he goes this weekend. For him, I guess, given the situation or the current situation he finds himself in with Haas and Formula 1, he just needs to get some good results.
Yeah, I mean, there are pieces being written, though, about at what stage Bearman's form in a Formula 2 car starts mattering to his prospects in a Formula 1 car. I mean, for all the world we're expecting in a short period of time, as we do see his teammate Kimi Antonelli off the road, the first driver I think I've seen in a Formula 2 car so far to test the limitations of the new gravel bed on the outside of turn 9. There it is. The poor mechanics, there were no less than 10 mechanics on the outside of marshals on the outside of turn 10, weren't there, after the last session, sweeping that gravel back into the bed. They must look at that and go, oh, here we go again. Right, get the sweepers out, lads. It's at what point does that form start mattering for Bearman? We're expecting for him to be announced at Haas in relatively short order, and at that point, you know, the job is done. The job may already be signed for him, but he still want to deliver the performance he should have delivered. He should be delivering in this year's Formula 2 Championship.
There's work being done here
Well, let's just go over that for a second. Bahrain, the car wasn't great for Prema. Saudi qualified on pole position, had a decent shot, but had to withdraw from the F2 weekend to go and drive on the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Australia, the car was better, he wasn't. That was a down weekend for him, and ever since then it's sort of been slowly getting worse for Bearman as well. But he is a very fast driver, and he does deserve a seat in Formula 1. This Prema is not the best we've had in F2, but we know what he can do in Formula 1. We've seen it happen. So, yeah, Bearman deserves a shot in Formula 1. Whether that's 2 new drivers for Prema next year, we don't know, because we expected Antonelli to be possibly announced at Mercedes in the short form. So, and yellow flags are out on the circuit. What's caused this then? As Fittipaldi does a 1:17.379, Crawford's got a second there. Car stopped on the circuit, and red flags are out now to suspend the session as well. So who is it who's come to a stopper on the start-finish line? Can't quite tell. It could be Fittipaldi in the 14. It's Taylor Barnard in the 25 who has stopped and caused the red flag. So it looks like the car has just ground to a halt with a technical issue. Now this happened if you remember, he crashed in qualifying at Barcelona a week ago. So Barnard really hasn't been having a decent race since he won the feature at Monaco on the Sunday. First red flag of the day, and the session gets suspended. The cars will then return to the pit lane and we'll go again. Let's head back over to the world feed.
Which has caused a reliability issue. There is to my memory, a gate in the middle of the pit wall here, relatively close to his position. They should be able to push him through. There it is.
There it is. Yeah.
Just to his right hand side, but I'm not sure that's going to be wide enough. Maybe it will to get him through.
So he found quite literally the perfect spot, but Taylor Barnard in problems. Once again, it wasn't a good qualifying session for him last time, and he's had a disappointing start to practice. That's a shame for Taylor Barnard. We'll try and find out more when we can. Let's first watch Dennis Hauger.
See what's become of the Norwegian driver. Oh, he's done a bend.
He's done a bend.
Through the outside of turn one.
There you go.
The nature of these ground effect Formula 2 cars, that they're extremely close to ground. Let's see what's going on with Behrman. He's going to have a little bit of a look at he's had a look at the inside wall of turn one and thought, nah, I don't fancy that. Inside look at the wall of turn 10, God, I don't fancy that either. Pushing to the absolute limit in that machine. Taylor Barnard still waiting to be turned into the pit lane there, and I suspect he's just waiting for everybody to recover into the pit lane to leave that fast lane clear so they can get him across to the team in the working lane.
Yeah, Taylor Barnard will be recovered to the pit lane, and with that, everyone just making their way back with the red flags out. Aaron leads on a 1:16.680. Jack Crawford second. Victor Martins, a positive result for him so far. Third, Gabriel Bortoletto fourth, Ollie Behrman fifth. Well, AIX Racing may have one driver coming to a halt on the start-finish light, but their other one, Joshua Dirksen, running very well in P6. Well, here we can see Paul Aron currently leading the way in this championship, coming off the back of a very good round at Barcelona where he got on the podium, and we caught up with him about that last round yesterday.
Looking back at Barcelona, I mean, we cannot be disappointed with the weekend that we had. I think the main takeaway from there is just the pace we showed. Ever since we got on track on Friday, we were first in practice. I was on pole in qualifying, and we had good race pace. So I think the weekend overall was really positive. We got another podium in the sprint, and obviously P4 in the feature gave us good points. But nevertheless, I did leave the track a bit disappointed, because starting on pole on Sunday and with the pace we had, I think we were there for a win, and I think we just didn't execute the race as well as we could have.
It's been very positive for Paul Aron. I think showed why he is a championship leader, Alex, after that off he had, particularly in the feature race where he recovered so well to get points, kept his head, didn't he? Drove like a championship leader.
Yeah, really did. I mean, the initial error was a strange one, must admit, losing the rear through the final corner.
It was, yeah.
But, as you say, how he got it back together again, and when you talked to him, when you listened to him in an interview, his mindset so clearly demonstrated. He's a super calm-headed guy. Got it back together, managed to recover the points, quick apology to the team, and then sent it again. So impressive for a driver of his age. And I think he showed there why he has been a podium finisher in at least one series since 2021.
Yeah.
You know, he's just super consistent, super calm. I think at this high pressure, high power level of Singasitis, that's playing out nicely for him in terms of his ability to continuously perform. Let's have a watch in with Oliver Behrman, who he looks like he's fiddling with the settings on the steering wheel there, and then basically just drove it off the road. Something we saw
Franco Colapinto did
yes.
in qualifying.
At the end of qualifying. That was because I'm sure that for Colapinto, that's because he was so desperate to see what time he'd done.
Yeah, he thought he was going to get pole.
He was staring at the screen so intently that he drove it off the road. Oliver Behrman there, just cool as a cucumber, but perhaps a bit too cool on the way into the pit lane, driving it off the road down towards the final two corners.
Dennis Hauger would have been disappointed with that first lap incident last week, similar to Martins, I guess. Got caught up in that instant and left with no points after last week, given he'd come off the back of such a good score at Monaco. But he still remains in the championship fight. does Dennis Hauger, still having a very good season. For Kimi Antonelli, well, this is where it all started for him in his single-seater journey, racing in Italian F4 in 2021, finishing 9th place in his very first race out of a grid of 31 drivers. Not very long time ago, he stepped in a single-seater, and he did so here. And he currently sits in 9th place. Going back to Dennis Hauger, 5th place for him. He'll just have to reset, I guess, coming off the back of what was a disappointing first lap crash.
It was just unfortunate,
yeah,
wasn't it? In the first couple of corners for Hauger and Martins. That is so often a pinch point, the exit of turn 2. You know, you get drivers climb over that inside curve. It's so much bigger than it looks, that inside curve of turn 2 in Barcelona. When you're sat behind the wheel of the car, it looks huge. You climb over that curve and you're often chucked wide. Inevitably, in the early laps, there will be someone there because there are cars all over the road trying to snatch the inside for turn 3. 2 experienced drivers, both going for the same bit of racetrack, and that is the nature of the beast, an absolute epitome of a racing incident for a pair of them.
Well, we can see Jack Crawford coming through turn 7 now. He had an absolutely brilliant weekend last week at Barcelona, taking the win. Well, we still have a long way to go in this season, and we caught up with him about that yesterday.
Obviously, everyone's very happy, but of course we have to stay humble. It's a new week, new challenges, different track. So, you know, I'm sure if it was Barcelona again, we would, we'd be super excited, but it's not, and it's a completely different track. So, yeah, it brings new challenges, and you know, we still have to put in that hard work that we did for Barcelona, and you know, it's the whole package that puts it together.
Good to hear from Jack Crawford as he comes at turn 4. Winner here last time, only 1 or 2 drivers on the grid can call himself that, and are coming in with lots of confidence as we follow him around this Red Bull Ring circuit. Very close in terms of time so far. What are going to be the biggest challenges for Jack Crawford if he's to go and repeat a win and try and take a pole position?
Well, Dams in general coming in off a great run of form in Barcelona, and Crawford definitely coming in on a high to this weekend. It's a completely different racetrack to Barcelona. You deal with, yes, some fast corners here, but it's much lower energy in terms of the tyre. You don't have the abrasion of the circuit surface to generate heat and temperature into the tyre. Much bigger braking zones here than there are around Barcelona, so it's an entirely different engineering challenge for drivers and teams. So I guess the focus for them is just to not be overconfident in many ways.
Right.
Reset, re-evaluate the car, not assume that just because you were on it around a totally different racetrack in Spain, that you're now going to be on it here in the Styrian Mountains. You've got to go after it again and not get complacent. But for Crawford, he'll be taking massive confidence away and appears to be delivering so far, less than a 10th away from championship leader Aaron in the early stages of this free practice session. So they'll be hoping that long may the form continue.
Looks to be that as Marty comes up towards the line now as well. 9th, and it doesn't improve, still half a second down. Aron from Crawford, Hadjar, Martins, Bortoletta, that's your top 5. Behrman 6th, Durskin 7th, Stanak 8th, Marty, Cordial ran out the top 10. Hauger, Maloney, Antonelli, Correa, O'Sullivan, Colapinto, Barnard, Fittipaldi, Maney, Maeta 20th. Vashaw and Villa Gomez. That is the 22 running at the moment with 20 minutes to go in this only practice session that the teams have to get the cars set up for qualifying. Paul Aron, though, on a 1:16.680, the fastest time out there on the circuit, is really, really impressive as well. So, well, there's swings and roundabouts to come in at the moment as well, which is what we all like to see.
To to see, and then you measure the amount of tape you have in centimetres, and it gives you how much brake blanking you want to run. Here, huge braking circuit in terms of management of brake temperature. It's always difficult. So yeah, and so you're always on this balance between how much temperature I want to put in the tyre through the brake disc, which obviously sits inside the wheel rim and therefore heats the tyre from inside. So the more blanking I put on, the more temperature will bleed through. But obviously not overheating the brakes, which obviously will overheat the more blanking you put on. So there's a sweet spot in the middle where you generate tyre temperature without overheating the brakes.
And we got a yellow flag out in Sector 3 as we see Victor Martins coming through Turn 4 and making his way round to Turn 6. Clear run for him so far on this lap as he comes around now the second sector. Going to be driving with a lot more confidence this weekend. He took pole here last season. Can he now go and reflect that this weekend? He'll hope to go quickest in this session. First of all, comes through turns 9 and 10, where we do have those new gravel traps added in. Up to the line he goes, currently 4th in this practice session, goes 3rd. Look how close the times are, less than a 1/10 and a half between the top 4 so far. 4th of them is Isaac Hadjar, Alex.
His way in towards ring curve and then bringing the car out. They're having to be so cautious now in the mid-corner of turn 9 there to stop the car from understeering wide, because it'd be a big moment in a Formula 2 car if they did get wide. Top of the times then for Hadjar in his Campos. Nature of the racetrack here, low wear, low abrasion. They're going to be able to deliver lap after lap, improving. You're also not doing that many corners per lap.
No.
So there's not a lot of energy going through the tyre on each lap you tour, meaning that you can have a couple of goes at it, and having a go at it is Kush Mining. Bit of afters there in the runoff area as well for Mining.
Wow, he went quite a distance off, didn't he, Kush Miney there? Big squatter coming into turn 9.
Trying to keep it inside the gravel on the outside of 9. Didn't manage to do that, and then found all of the no grip.
Yes.
On the outside of 9, and had to catch it again.
So Joshua Dirksen cycling round his teammate in pit lane, Taylor Barnard, who we had the red flag for. He showed great place last weekend. We have to be said.
Dirksen, the driver I really felt for actually last weekend, because he was on the reverse strategy in the same way as Correa was.
Yeah.
But actually, when he had that reliability issue, was 7 seconds or so up the road from where Correa was. Obviously, brilliant performance from Correa, but Dirksen was on strategy to potentially win the race last time out in Barcelona in the feature.
Yeah, his comments after the race were, we had the pace to win that race, and on reflection, he said that this team, AIX Racing, is going in the right direction of challenging for those wins and podiums, and that's what they have done this season. Juan Manuel Correa eventually on that alternative strategy will of course get on the podium, but coming up from Frecker, Joshua Dirksen has done a superb job to put his car straight onto a podium this season, and put Paraguay there as well. For the very first time, he is inspiring many people from that part of the world, from his nation, to show an interest in our sport, and we wish him all the best for the rest of the season along with the rest of the field. Okay, Isaac Hadjar, this tricky downhill braking zone, isn't it, Alex, with that bed of gravel on the exit?
Yeah, follow Hadjar then through turn 6 as we head down. It falls away way more than it looks trackside. Mid-corner turn 6 tends to generate that little bit of a balance issue through the exit, and then it's really satisfying compression through the mid-corner of turn 7. Slight banking on the way in, hates the right-hander, and as you head into 9, you can see absolutely nothing of the apex. Got to pick your moment on the left-hand side to turn in, which gives you the apex of Rinker, borrow a bit of the apex of the final corner, and then point it absolutely straight across the start-finish line for the minimum distance. Hadjar's flying at this stage of the free practice session as he slows it down then to take energy out of the surface of the tyre at turn 1.
And Isaac Hadjar going fastest there, 1:16.441. He's clearly enjoying the Red Bull Ring circuit. is the Red Bull Junior, and we caught up with Isaac Hadjar about the Red Bull Ring circuit yesterday.
I think it's definitely going to be tight margins, even tighter than Barcelona. I think it's obviously a small track, not many corners, so everyone is basically doing similar lap times. So yeah, and traffic is going to be a thing. It's going to be a big topic, so tire warm-up and getting the traffic right would be 50% of the job done.
Hear from Isaac Hadjar. Would certainly love a good result round here. Would consider this almost a bit of a home race in that livery. And Isaac Hadjar a chance to elevate himself to the top of the standings. The first time we saw him out the top 10 in qualifying last weekend, and you could hear what that meant to him over team radio when he found that out, that he had just missed out with 11.
I was going to say that you only needed to listen in to the team radio to show to hear that he'd had a qualifying that he wasn't happy with.
Yeah.
But drove a brilliant pair of races, actually, Hadjar, 6th and 5th across the two races, so recovered the situation.
A few rain clouds coming over the air as well, and in a few moments' time we'll be handing permanently over to the world feed as Megan will be coming in and taking over while I go and cover the start of the MotoGP session as well. Their practice, 45 minutes, free practice, same as what we've had here. Just to give you a reminder what's coming up on the channel, 9:45 till 10:30, MotoGP free practice 1. Then we all get a 45-minute break for lunch. Then it's 11:15 to 12:40 is the F1 practice session. 12:55 till 1:35 is the F3 qualifying. And then at 1:50 till 2:30, it's the F2 qualifying with Jess and Megan in the commentary box. At the same time, 2 till 3, I'll be commentating on the 1-hour MotoGP practice session. And then at 3:15 till 4:30, it's the F1 sprint shootout qualifying with myself, Megan, Jess, and Josh T in the comms box as well. And then technically later on tonight, at technically Saturday morning as well, you can join us 12:50 for Formula E, their first practice session from the Portland Prix. We have people on site in Portland for this one. Joe Samiego and Nicole Fry are trackside for us to give us information throughout the weekend here on Formula E, and we'll be catching up with them during the sessions as well. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and ahead of all the action and get all sorts of information as well. Megan's watched the commentary box. Have you been in the full shower and all that lot? That is very impressive if you have to come in as well. But Megan's here to take over.
I am completely ready. I got up.
I can't hear. Hang on a minute. We can't hear you. Let's get a microphone on you with one of these and go like that. Go on.
I'm completely ready for the day. I woke up at 7 and went in the shower at 7:30.
Oh, okay. That surprises me. As they're coming to it, will you do first practice? I'm about to go now. That's why I'm off. That's why Megan's here. I'm doing it now. So the first practice session for MotoGP starts in 5 minutes' time at 9:45 to 10:30, and I'm off there now. Look, it's all on the list. All on our massive schedule that we've written down and know exactly where everybody is. So, Megan, you're here taking over at the end of this. And then that's it. Say again?
I will not be speaking there.
No, you'll be just saying like bye-bye. And that as well. In that case, I'm going to leave this up to date. And you don't need this, so I'll take this off because there's one up there on that one. And yeah, I'm going to head off. So I'll leave you with Megan, and then I'll leave you on button 9. So do you want my headset or do you want yours? Doesn't really matter anymore.
Yours on.
All right, here's Megan.
Oh, that's weird. Right, button 9.
So tyre wear, brake wear, 2 things to keep an eye on this weekend as we move into the final 10-minute. Isaac Hadjar leading by just over 2/10 ahead of Aaron Crawford as we see adjustments to the rear wing. Spencer Fitzpatrick.
You can see the one that's being put on there, the DRS plane that's being put on, has a smaller flick, what's known as a gurney flap, on the back of the back of the rear wing. That's a lower downforce solution. So at times here you can, especially in a car with higher power, of course, higher power cars get up to a higher top speed, which makes drag all the more important because drag squares with speed. So that you can often run at a lower drag level with a higher power car, and that clearly is what Fittipaldi's trying there.
Are you sacrificing performance through the second sector?
Performance or balance,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So if you only change the rear wing, obviously, without changing the front flap, you're obviously moving the aero bias more towards the front. So if you have a bit of, let's say, understeer, and you want to try and cure it, often the way you'll do so is by removing a little bit of rear wing, especially rear wing which comes with drag, as gurney flaps often do.
Yeah.
That should balance you in the middle sector and give you more top speed as well.
Right.
So you're going to try and go flat faster by taking rear wing off.
Right, yeah. No, it's definitely something we will see how Fittipaldi does, and it's these practice sessions, what you use these for. A great insight, as always, from Alex Brundle. Let's have a look from Zane Maloney coming through the final corner and showing why those gravel traps have been installed.
A day at the beach with Zane Maloney, who gets wide through the middle of turn 10. Still like the solution.
Yeah.
Still like the solution. Prepared to put up with the sweeping. No problem with that.
They got to work very quickly, I have to say, the team here at Red Bull Ring. Ollie Behrman, let's ride on board with him and watch it on use from onboard the Prima Racing Drive.
It's very presumptuous. Maybe we'll keep it in the road. There we go. Keeps it in the road.
We can see
Proved us all wrong through the mid-corner and turn 9. Lovely stuff from Ollie Behrman. Turns in off that outside curve. It often requires a tweak in terms of high-speed damping to allow the drivers to do that. So high-speed damping means high shaft speed. It's the way cars deal with bumps and curbs, and you have to tweak it sometimes if you want to turn in off a curb with big load over the front tire.
That last corner, very easy to catch drivers out, isn't it? We've seen it happen many times through there. Leads into one of 3 DRS zones here as well. This, the first of them, the second straight after turn 3, and then the last of them coming down the start-finish straight. The first time we've had 3 DRS zones since Australia, for a little while now, isn't it? So it's going to be interesting to see that in use.
It really will. Back-to-back DRS zones as well, all 3 of them. So you actually gain the DRS, once we're up and running in the races, you gain DRS 3 at the detection point, then that rolls straight into DRS 1 and then 2.
Yeah.
So you get, basically, if you're the car behind, 3 goes at it by the time you've made it down towards turn 4. It can be weirdly difficult to overtake here because of the narrowness of the entries, and the single line down towards turn 4 means that it's quite hard to go side by side through the apex of turn 4. So, yeah, they need those DRS zones to make it happen. Maloney passing the traffic on his way down to Ring Curve can be a factor of qualifying a little later on as well. Not quite as bad as Formula 3, less cars on track, but definitely a factor for the Formula 2 drivers. Let's see what this is like for Maloney. He needs a good weekend. 1.5 seconds away from the pace, as most of the drivers now appear to have a reasonable amount of tyre degradation, actually.
Yeah, we're not seeing green sectors so much now, as Zane Maloney currently running round on those soft tyres, but we didn't see him improve on that lap. Amaury Cordial running in 15th place, Zane Maloney in 13th. There's Isaac Hadjar in the pit lane, who's leading. Will we see him out for any more of this session? May see him come out one more time. Paul Aron is on and out lap. Dennis Hauger likewise, as is Fittipaldi. This is Zane Maloney running right to the limit and just a little more.
Yeah, it's kind of a... Calling it a trench is not fair, but I'm not sure what I'm going to call it, so I'm going to go with trench, a shallow trench that the gravel is in on the edge of that curb. I think drivers are going to have to be cautious, especially at the beginning of the race when tyre pressures are low, that they don't end up catching the sidewall of the tyre on that lip as they come back onto the road. Hauger with a lot of traction issues through the exit of turn 3 there. And let's see what kind of grip. See rear moving around again for him on the way into turn 4 in the MP car. Looking relatively strong at the moment. Close at the moment, yet again, in Formula 2. Hobfield almost within a second, all the way down to Miney. A second in the 10th. 1.1 outside the pace there. Final run on the field.
The closest ever qualifying session we've had in Formula 2 history last weekend. Will we see something similar? Oh, well, we're going to see Dennis Hauger go over the gravel track once and twice as he rejoins the circuit there. And you said he's struggling with rear end, and there was a demonstration of it.
Yeah, rear's had it, hasn't it, for Hauger? So he'll be in for a bit of a bleed on rear tyre pressure. Maloney trying to get out of the way of the Trident car as it comes through the middle of turn 4. That's how tricky it is. You've got to stay on the inside line. There's several, in fact a lot of blind areas. Considering the length of the track here, a lot of blind areas in the circuit. Here's another one of them, the exit of turn 6. Let's see what's going on with Hauger. It was a relatively early snap, wasn't it, for Hauger? Just couldn't commit to the apex of turn 9 with the steering wheel. Had to get immediately out of it and across the runoff.
Yeah, there he goes, straight across the gravel to give a little bit of extra work at the end of the session. But that an example of what we could see throughout the race, particularly towards the end of stints.
And there's it looked like there was a bit of debris that came off the base of Hauger's car there. I don't know if it was debris that was out there already, or whether there were streaks that came off the floor of Hauger's car that appeared to land outside the gravel trap, so it could be a factor. We have got drivers losing proper lap times on the outside of turn 7, which is the downhill left-hander in the middle of the racetrack. So there are still track limits and fences going on out there to watch. Victor Martin's losing a time on the outside of turn 1 as well, as has Ollie Behrman. They appear to be losing a little bit of time on the exit of turn 1. But T7 is going to be an area where drivers lose lap times that might otherwise have scored them positional improvement.
Yeah. Paul Aaron on one of his final laps in this session. Isaac Hadjar has come for an outslap. Likewise, Ollie Behrman. You can see how close they get to the outside of the circuit, and that's an example of where we're seeing track limits as well through turn 6, where we saw Paul Aaron, not suggesting he did so on that lap, but you can see where those offences are being made.
Yeah, I'm assuming it is that curve on the outside of turn 6 on the entry to turn 7, because the one on the outside of turn 7 is really bumpy.
Yeah.
And would cause a significant moment for any car going over it. So it's that area on the exit of turn 6 where you can turn in off the curb and gain extra time on your way into T7 as well. And it opens T7 a lot, which is a big factor in apex speeds. It closes through the exit up against that mid-corner curve of T8.
Oh, Fittipaldi on a personal best lap here at the end. He's struggling slightly through the second sector, but Enzo Fittipaldi trying to improve on one of his final laps. He'll get one more crack at it as he crosses the line into the final 2 corners. Looked like the car was understeering there. Someone kicking up some dust ahead as Fittipaldi comes out the final corner. Up to the line he goes. Where will this put him? Stay second.
So remember, Fittipaldi with that downforce tweak early on in the session that we saw is going to be one of a number of drivers, I would imagine, playing with downforce level. They'll have sat in the truck before the session began and made a plan as to how they're going to sweep the different downforce levels that they might consider using. Of course, always raceability to consider as well. The faster your car is in a straight line, the easier it is to overtake people. Let's see what's going on for the Alpine Junior Victor Martins in turn 9, troubling the gravel. Are we going to have another go out of turn 10? No, we're not.
Yeah,
and that's the very limit for Martins, who's still on the road there with the right front tyre.
It's just that rear left we're seeing, isn't it? Drivers using. But that's going to slow them down.
Yeah, that's the point. And that's the point. He's not quite actually, is he? That's Kushmini through the outside of turn 9. Eagle-eyed would have spotted the thin blue line.
Yeah.
Not a whodunit documentary, but it is a line on the outside of the racetrack up against the white line, and that's to allow some speculation with regards to whether that's to assist any AI system. It's not. The way that those systems work is that they filter out the no-hopers, and then all of the close ones are discerned by human eye still. Right. But it's to help the marshals, the judges of fact, see the limits of the white line, which of course the white line being considered part of the track. So the limitation of the white line is the blue line, if you like. So that delineates the track extremely clearly, and the idea of that is to speed up the decisions. Yeah. With the hope of doing so. So a nice mod. I like that mod.
Yeah. It's been some, I think, good adaptations to the circuit, which we've already seen in use, and some drivers coming on our laps. We will see some practice starts in use to end this free practice session. And Isaac Hadjar going quickest, our two championship leaders, first and second, albeit in the other order. So it's a Hadjar ahead of Paul Aron, Jack Crawford off the back of that win. Third place, Dennis Hauger right up there in contention for the title. Fourth, Victor Martins.
Interesting lineup at the end of free practice. Good day for Victor Martins to show yet again that he's on the pace. Let's hope he has a more fortunate weekend. Good form continues for Crawford and Dams, so that will be heartening for them. A little bit of a more difficult session for Correa in the other Dams, although he has shown pace during the race running. Don't know what's gone on for Miney. Appears to have had a bit of a struggle throughout that session so far, but basically our championship contenders line astern in reverse order at the front of free practice. So exciting stuff as ever as we move through into qualifying.
Right, going to cut them off there then while everyone's doing their practice starts. All of the tyres looked extremely worn, so that kind of brings an idea of what it will be like during the race. Thank you for joining Joshua mainly, and it's me right now, on this F2 free practice session. Please go over to the other stream right now of Joshua doing MotoGP free practice 1 currently on the channel. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.